Hey guys, welcome back. I'm your host, Carissa.
And I'm Christian, and this is A Lot in Common.
So today we're going to be welcoming on a very special guest. He's a former director on the Candace Owens show. We're so excited to have a conversation with him today. Welcome in, Mark Herman. Thanks for doing this today. We're super excited to talk to you. We probably want to start with your time with Candace Owens, because we think it's important to, show kind of a side of Candace Owens that people don't know so well, because we're kind of looking into the character of Erica Kirk. So it'd be kind of cool to just kind of briefly talk about the character of Candace Owens and how it was being a part of her staff and like what you did for her.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I met Candace at the end of 2020 or beginning of 2021. I was hired by the Daily Wire at the end of September 2020 as their broadcast engineer, despite being a director primarily throughout my career in television through local news up to the national level, even entertainment news. I did some dabbling there. And so Daily Wire found me, recruited me through a freelance job posting that I had posted while I was living in LA, brought me on and tasked me with moving the company to Nashville, which I think went okay. But I noticed early on that each show kind of had their own team. And, it was people that had been with that talent since they started. And so kind of like trying to break into that and really get into, become a part of the company, because I had never worked anywhere other than mainstream media at that point. Right. So it was a very unique experience. So when I met Candace, I was like, she's great. We hit it off. And I just told myself I wanted to be on her team. And so once she fully came on board and started her first show with Daily Wire in March of 2021, I came on as the director and worked with her until the end of my time at Daily Wire in summer of 2023. I went a couple different directions after that. And then after she was fired, she gave me a call and said, I'm going to start my own show. I want you to help build it out and run it for me. And I came on and got to be her director again and bring her independent show up to #1 in the world, which is an insanely huge honor. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is so cool.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Very cool. So you're from the ground up with her and brought her to the top. That is so awesome. To be
Well,
a part of that
I
original
helped.
team.
The magic, Candace is the magic. So
Yeah.
Right.
it's just,
She's a goat.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, she's always had to deal with opposition and people dragging her through the mud and just totally just disrespecting her in every single type of way, saying the rudest things about her online. But now it's gone more sinister and dark with the whole situation that happened with Charlie. I mean, in our opinion, I think a lot of people's opinion, she's the only person actually speaking, or she was one of the first people speaking out against his death. And it was way more obviously dark than what they were trying to say. And so in your opinion, with knowing Candace, how based do you think all of the attacks are towards her? Do you think that they're valid, or do you think that it's just completely wrong?
Well, I've had the pleasure of working with her for a while, and once her show went independent, we were running it out of her home. And so to actually be in the home with her, see her interactions with her children, see her interactions with George, when people say that she's a terrible mom or that it's a sham marriage, like, I laugh at that, because it nothing could be further from the truth. It's not like when we would prep the show, we would hide away. Like we'd be out there in a common space where her kids would come up and join us randomly throughout the day. So the people that say that she's not a mom or she's not a loving wife or that it's a sham relationship are totally off base. And whenever there would be articles that would come out that would say, like, Candace treats her staff terrible, or these anonymous whistleblowers that are like, oh, I worked for someone who worked for Candace once, so I technically worked for Candace, and she didn't look at me one time when she passed me in a hallway. She's the worst person ever. Like, we would laugh at that because I've never had a negative experience with her. I tried thinking about it, and really the most hurtful things that she has ever done to me would be not laughing at some of my jokes. And I know they're not all winners, so I understand sometimes, but it hurts a little personally. But yeah, just this fiction that she's a terrible person or a diva is way off base. And I think that really just kind of shows that she's over the target, because when you can't really attack the substance of what she's saying, you go after the person. And that's exactly what we're seeing here.
So I'm glad we can clear that up, the little bit that we can, the little audience that we have.
I think it's super important to get more positive press on Candace out there because she is doing such an important fight. And she's the loudest voice right now in this whole movement for Charlie. And so it's nice to get, like, I'll see on X, some people will be posting like beautiful pictures of her because they tried that whole thing where Trump was saying that Brigitte Macron is more attractive than her. And so people are just posting gorgeous pictures of Candace because obviously, come on.
Yeah.
And so it's important to get the truth out there with people that did know her, how great of a person she is. Yeah. I think that's very important.
It's a little off topic, but I really enjoyed her interview with Hunter Biden. After my time with her, I left the show in early February, and seeing that interview, I sent that to a lot of my liberal friends and family members because I think in that interview you can really see her humanity, because the level of compassion that she has for someone who she actively talked trash about, we all did because we had this narrative that was being sold to us. We had evidence that was being shown to us specifically to back up these particular narratives. But there's always a deeper story. A lot of people have a difficult time understanding the complexity of the human experience and how we are all having our own unique experience that is as rich as the one that we are experiencing ourselves. But it's hard for us to picture that with other people. And especially once you get the internet involved, you depersonalize these interactions even further. And I think that's another reason why people are so mean on the internet. But to actually see her humanity in the way that she spoke with Hunter and, went through his story in a more detailed way that actually gave context to a lot of things. They didn't really address the contents of the laptop, which is something that I would have wanted to see.
Right.
But because there's some stuff in there, no matter how that laptop came to be or how that information came out, it's still a little weird at, being extremely generous there.
Yeah.
But to actually see her one-on-one with him on a human level, I think was fantastic. And I think that's why that interview resonated with so many people. It's got millions and millions of views because you see a side of her that you don't ordinarily get to see.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it really showcased the true human that she is, the compassionate side of her.
Yeah.
To put everything aside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's awesome, and I'm glad that now there's somebody here saying that she is that knows her. Very cool. We couldn't agree more.
Let's move on to Charlie Kirk. I was really interested.
Yeah.
We were both very interested to know if you ever got the chance or the pleasure of meeting him.
I believe I met him in passing a couple of times during the first iteration of Candace's show when she would have guests on. I never really had the time to actually meet him and have a conversation with him other than beyond maybe a quick intro or two. And I really regret that. I really do. Just seeing the impact that he's had on the world before and after his death, and really seeing, like, I always try and look for silver linings in things, or little slivers of positivity in a really negative situation. And I think one of the most positive things that has come out of losing Charlie is that it exposed so many more people to his words, his videos, his arguments are going viral. His love for God and how he shares his experience and he encourages other people to look deeper into it. I think that is a huge benefit. I know we were talking shortly after his death that there are more people going to church for the first time or coming back to the church, or even, synagogue. They're whatever religion people are, it made people more religious. And, pretty much no matter what the religion is, that's a net positive. Getting people to be closer to God.
Right.
And I think that was a big positive that came out of that. But also it brought a lot of people together to really rally behind the cause of figuring out what truly happened to him, who was truly behind it. Because that, he was going to be a president. No doubt about it. He was going to be president of the United States. And he had such a magic about him where he was able to reach across the aisle and kind of bring people into the middle instead of having them fully on one side or the other. And that's dangerous if you can't control that. And it's sounding like they couldn't control that. And unfortunately, we had to lose him as a result of that.
Also, with Charlie, the whole enlightening another silver lining, if you could say, with Charlie being taken, is everybody is questioning so much more now, especially with the administration and just everything. Nobody's buying anything. Like we've said a few times, like the Havanta virus, they tried to push that on everybody and everybody's like, no, get out of here. And they just stopped, you know?
Yeah, like they're not able to pull any psyops on us anymore. Like they're just all flopping.
Yeah, we learned a lot from that. Really opened up a lot of people's eyes. And Candace has made allegories to that fact as well, that this is the new trust the science, don't ask questions, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. I almost look at it like from that QAnon standpoint of like just 2 more weeks, trust the plan, Patriots are in control, don't worry about it, don't ask questions, we got it. And that's an old, I want to say it's an old Soviet tactic to stop dissent from actually growing, because it's like you press pause on these people's plans because they genuinely believe that someone else is already working on it and that they just need to wait it out. And then someone else will do it, and then they can join in. But really, they're the ones who need to stand up. And so it's a massive psychological tactic.
Absolutely.
Huge.
Now, let's get into why you think, I want to know your opinion. Why do you think that they killed Charlie Kirk? And who do you think did it? Just your opinion. Opinions here only, everybody, right?
Yep.
Humble
Opinions
opinion.
only.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I kind of touched on that a little bit ago. He was too powerful. He had the ability to debate people in a respectful fashion and bring people back down to earth even when they got a little bit heated. And he was funny. He was funny while he did it. That is that has a huge psychological impact. One example that I noticed a while ago is the show Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. And so just the way that they deliver the information in that show is very psychologically effective. You make a point and you give a little bit of data, then you give a laugh line and people laugh, and it makes them kind of think past the sale. They don't really process that data. They just accept it as good because they're laughing and they're moving on. But Charlie didn't do that for a malicious reason. I don't know if he was even aware of what he was doing, but that's a very effective way to communicate with people and get them onto your side. And so he was very effective at that. And I think people saw that and wanted to control it. And, we've heard about the infamous Hamptons phone call where, allegedly, I don't know if I even have to say allegedly, they've said that BB was on the phone with Charlie Kirk at this Hamptons retreat. And, he turned down whatever the offer was, whatever the monetary number involved is. Some people say 150 million. Some people say that there was no dollar amount. It's just to take them to the next level. And I think Charlie was a smart guy. He understood, the strings that came along with that deal, and said no to it. Now, whether or not that led directly to his death, I don't know. I know I don't buy the official narrative. I don't believe for 1 second that Tyler Robinson acted entirely alone. I'm not sure he even fired the fatal shot. My personal working theory is that, Charlie was shot with a rifle that was not a standard 30-06 round. And I don't believe he was shot from the Losi Center. Just the way that everything lined up and the damage that we saw just didn't really ring true to me as a shot being fired from the Losi Center. I know bullets can behave in very weird ways, but that was too weird. That was too weird for me. So, but I don't know who's ultimately behind it. I don't have a working hypothesis on that.
Yeah. Have you seen the video of behind him, the tent that he was under, that the trunk was opened up and then they shut the trunk? Like right after he had been shot, they shut the trunk. But before they opened the trunk, right before. And so there was a lot of people theorizing that they shot a bullet into the trunk for like a sound to make people think that there was a bullet that went off. Have you heard that?
I've loosely seen a little bit about that recently of, people posting who opened the trunk, who closed the trunk. I didn't dig too deeply into it. My thinking with doing anything other than a gunshot, whether it be a attack drone or like special top secret drone or an exploding microphone or an electrocuting microphone, if you're going to do this operation that cannot fail and the narrative is going to be that he was shot, why not just shoot him? Like, why go through all of it's easy to have a patsy. They've done it tons and tons of times before. You have a patsy as your assassin, and oh no, they died before trial, or, many, many, many such cases of that. But when you have a complicated plan like that, where you're firing a gun at the exact precise time so that the recorded audio signature, the delay between the crack and the thud, times out to the proper distance for where the shot is supposed to come from, while simultaneously triggering some other device to actually kill Charlie, it's so much easier, and there's so many fewer potential points of failure to just fire a gunshot. And so that's kind of the lens that I look at all these different theories through first. Mm-hmm. If there's something that makes more sense, I'll dig deeper into it. But I'm not entirely buying that. I think a lot of weird stuff just happens sometimes, or there's a lot of weird things that turn out to be coincidental that, in hindsight look like they have meaning. But I don't know. I'm not really buying anything other than, he was shot by some sort of high-powered rifle round, but not as high-powered as a 30-06.
That would make sense, like using your common sense. Like, if they're going to use a weapon and say that it was that weapon, why wouldn't they just use it instead of complicate things?
Right.
But then you look at the whole thing.
More and more people in, and
right.
You have like wireless transmitters and hand signals, depending on, which method we're talking about, or which theory we're talking about. It's like, though, each one of those is another potential point of failure. And each person that you add into the secret, you have to essentially think that they're going to tell 10 people. So if you have 5 people that are read in on this top secret operation, you're really bringing in over 50 people into it that are going to have this knowledge. And then you have all these loose ends that need to be tied up, all these people that can speak out. So it just really overcomplicates things. And, the powers that be that do these types of things, they're not stupid. They've done this a lot before. They're going to continue to do this a lot in the future. And I'm sure they have learned from previous mistakes. And I'm sure they've learned from mistakes in this operation as well.
Yeah, that's a good perspective to look at it, that they wouldn't want to overcomplicate it. But then they have like things like he engraved the bullets, and then they have this extravagant conversation, Tyler Robinson and Lads Twiggs that they wrote in text messages. So it kind of seems like they have overcomplicated it, and almost seems like, with your perspective of why would they overcomplicate it, it's almost like it was like not a last minute assassination, but maybe kind of like they had to do it quicker than they anticipated, and so it could still be the exploding mic.
We are exploding mic theorists. That's what we believe here. Also, though, have you looked into? I'm sure you've looked into it a lot, the exploding mic theory.
Oh yeah.
But the building that blew up. Have you seen these photos side by side? I'm going to pull them up so the audience can see. They're absolutely insane.
Ones that made the personnel device, that building?
Yeah, I believe they were called energized weapons.
Oh, in Alcoa, Tennessee?
Yes. And let me pull them up so we can see the side by side of how devastating the explosion was. What was unique about this company was they had the demolition charge, the anti-personnel, there was a contract for it from the DOD in August, I believe, 2 months before. And so the company blows up, or this building blows up. I think it was less than a month later. Let's see, October 10th, it blew up. The same company, right?
A month to the day.
Mm-hmm. And this is, they got rid of everything. If you're going with the conspiracy that someone did this, right? And it wasn't an accident. I mean, even the parking lot, just everything.
Yeah, it looks like it was attacked by direct energy weapons, doesn't it? Because it's like all the trees are okay.
Bomb.
Yeah. It's all the trees are just fine.
And then 16 people died.
Yeah, they all died except for one. I'm seeing a lot of comments people are leaving on our videos. They're saying one person survived and somebody interviewed him. I can't find it anywhere. Have you heard of this?
I haven't heard of that. But I will say that I'm not surprised that a place that manufactures high explosives would be completely vaporized if something went off there. I think it's very easy for the people in that factory, because it's easy to think like, okay, so these people knew they were making an exploding mic. they're not actually going to be making that in that explosives factory. They're going to be making an explosive package that someone else would put into the microphone.
Right.
So it's very easy. And this is a crazy, crazy comparison, but the iPhone. Okay, just follow me for a second. So when they were developing the iPhone, they had teams working on the hardware separately and working on the software separately, and neither team knew what the other was doing. The hardware people had no idea what was going to run on their hardware. The software people had no idea what kind of specific hardware that their programming was going to run on. And that's how they kept it secret for so long. So you can absolutely have people working on pieces of a project. You also saw it with the Manhattan Project in the 40s, with us creating a nuclear device. No one there really knew what they were doing because everyone was working on a different, unique piece of the final, the finished nuclear bomb that they didn't know what their component was going into. There were very, very few people that knew how all the pieces came together and what they were actually for. So looking through that lens, I don't know if that AES explosion would even have to be related, because I highly doubt that if the exploding mic theory is true, which I personally don't believe it is for reasons we can get into later on, then they're not going to be making the final product there. They're just going to be making a small explosives package that they're going to ship off, and someone else is actually going to do the dirty work of putting it together. So I think that may have been a legit accident, or maybe that's covering up something else.
Like
but
somebody
I don't
found
see how
out.
that could be related. Yeah.
What do you think about, I'm going to pull this up as well for the audience, but the fabric or whatever was found in the back seat of the car? You've obviously seen pictures of that. Now,
Yeah.
people are coming to Candace saying that it's fabric, and then once you do look at it through that lens, you can see the
Oh, absolutely.
the stitching, and so it definitely looks burnt to me.
Yeah, I've seen the car photos. You know, I have some differing thoughts on it as well, which, you know, we can also get into.
Yeah.
I know
Let's go
a
get
lot of
into
people
it.
don't necessarily like my take on it, but my personal belief is at this point the exploding mic theory is, honestly, I think it could be being pushed by TPUSA or people that are sympathetic to TPUSA, just to manipulate people into putting out bad information so that they can be discredited in the future as a way to basically, like, because a lot of the people that watch your show and that are really deep in this, they're not stupid people. They're
Right.
intelligent, and they see these patterns and they're able to put pieces together. But the broader public is not really that thoughtful. And so all they really need is one big thing that, you know, Candace is wrong about, or Barron is wrong about, or Ian is wrong about, and they can point to that and loop everyone into that same basket and essentially run it as, oh, if you don't believe the official narrative, if you ask any question about the official narrative, you're no better than these crazy people that thought that this mic exploded, that, you know, it patently didn't. Here's this evidence that it didn't. And here's them doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on it. Do you really want to be associated with that? And the majority of the public is going to be like, yeah, you're right. They're crazy. It's crazy to ask questions. You know, I can't afford gas right now, so I'm going to go back to focusing on that and not worry about what actually happened to Charlie Kirk. Like,
Right.
I think there's some broader psychological manipulation going on here.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does.
And it's good to kind of look at every angle, and there's no fact. We can have our opinions, but as long as we all can agree that Tyler Robinson wasn't a lone gunman in this, and that there are some serious lies being told, and this was an assassination, it's good to talk about the theories on what actually happened then. If you don't agree with the exploding mic theory, what theory are you going towards, that it was a gunshot, but you don't know what?
Yeah.
Do you want to go in on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can start with my problems with the mic theory, and I actually, it's not. I later found out it is not the exact model, but it's from the same family. But I got a Rode mic and I took it apart to see, you know, what kind of space we're actually dealing with in here.
Right.
Because there's a couple of schools of thought that it was a microphone that was rigged to explode, but still also acted as a microphone, so that the person who was listening to the audio coming from it was unaware of it. Like if you're going to do a top secret operation, you want as few people read in on as possible. So that makes sense to me. So I want to see how much space was in here, how much you could take out with it still being functional. There's not much space really in here. So then the other theory is, okay, it was totally hollowed out. The entire thing was packed with, an explosive device to go off. So we can run with that theory. The problem that I have is the placement of the mic. So it's over here. The wound appears here. I've seen the video of John Bray with a steel rod going across his neck and showing that you can make it line up with the entry wound or exit wound, depending on your belief. Mm-hmm. My issue with that is the rod is, you can tell it's pressed pretty hard up against his Adam's apple. Like he's struggling to make that work. So if there is a piece that comes out of this microphone that is sharp enough to create the almost perfectly circular wound that we saw, it would be sharp enough to slice his Adam's apple as it went around. So that path, that trajectory doesn't work out in my mind. And then you looking at the wound, you see it's almost perfectly circular. So if there was a circular projectile in here coming at an angle, it would have been an oval shape, because that's just how things line up. So the projectile would have had to essentially come out and do a 90-degree turn to go straight in. And so that's one of the main issues that I have with it. Also, you still see the mic attached, or at least the magnet on his shirt after Charlie is hit. You still see it attached. If there's an explosion that's powerful enough to do all of that, that's powerful enough to cause the cavitation that you can see in Charlie's neck, that's a lot of force. And so one of Newton's laws of physics is every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So you would see, that's why you have recoil when you shoot a gun. You would see this moving in the opposite direction if something is coming out of it, and you don't see that behavior with it. I've also seen still images where someone's like, look, in this frame, you can see a puff of smoke coming out from under the shirt. Mm-hmm. That's one frame of video, which is 1/30th of a second. I have never seen smoke that exists only for 1/30th of a second. It lingers in the air. And so I have a lot of problems with that. And then I look deeper into it, thinking like, okay, what examples have we seen where there has been an consumer electronic device rigged to explode? Of course, did it. They did the exploding pagers, and there's a bunch of surveillance videos of those going off, and that is Petin. That is the same high explosive that people think was used in the microphone. Mm-hmm. And looking at those videos, there's a big flash, there's smoke, and it's not super effective. There were thousands of those that went off, and maybe a couple dozen of deaths. Mm-hmm. Which is, it's not super effective. So, because you can't entirely control it. And then they say, oh, it's a shaped charge. A shaped charge, an explosive that is a shaped charge, is still going to go off in all directions, but it's just mostly going to go off in one direction. And even then, Newton's law applies, you'll still need that opposite reaction happening. So I don't think that happened with the microphone. I remember towards the end of last year, there were a lot of people that were extremely confident that Charlie was electrocuted through the handheld mic that he was using. Right. And that kind of went away as well, because that doesn't make sense. He was on a raised platform. Electricity always wants to go to the ground. It wants to find the closest path. Typically, when your heart stops because of electricity, it's because a circuit is completed that goes across your heart. So if he's holding the microphone with his left hand, and he has, best case scenario, he has his left foot barefoot touching the grass directly, touching the ground directly, the electricity would go in his hand and down, not across his heart, down to his foot. Now, if it's super duper high voltage, that can still absolutely be fatal. But Charlie wasn't touching the ground. He was on a raised platform. And so the electricity is not going to go, there's nowhere for it to complete the circuit. His right hand was empty. Right. So there's nothing to draw the current across his heart. And then the photos of his hands being burnt looks like maybe blood in the photos taken at UVU. In the casket, his hands looked really weird. I think that's kind of like crappy mortician makeup. It's Orem, Utah, surprise death, high profile death. You're not going to get the A team, working at the mortuary. No offense to anyone who works there, but small town Utah isn't going to have the best morticians in the world, clearly. So I don't know. I think he was shot with a rifle. a high-powered round at the very least, not anything that could fit into a palm gun, which is another theory that I've seen that I strongly disagree with.
Yeah.
Because you see that cavitation, and that only comes from a high-powered round. And the indications of cavitation to me, there are a couple of frames because no one expected this to happen, so they weren't shooting high speed; they were just shooting regular video. But there's one frame in most of these videos where you can see his neck almost looks like a bullfrog. That's indicative of cavitation, and then also the delay from him being hit to the blood coming out. That's another indication of cavitation where everything is pushed out of this area, including blood. And so that's all pushed out, and then gravity takes over and the blood starts to pour out after that. So that delay also tells me there was cavitation. But also, I'm not a doctor or a ballistics expert. I'm just a guy who
explains it really well.
You're Mark explaining it very well.
I try.
Very well. Actually, I'm like, wait, maybe I'm not an exploding mic theorist
I know,
anymore.
right?
Maybe.
But no, there's so much to look at, and it's so much information.
Yeah.
Great perspective though. But if it was a shot, then somebody took that shot then.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
that could go back to a lot of people are saying, and I mean, a lot of people are saying a lot of different things, but the point is that we're all actually saying different things, and people are still looking into it. No, this case is not solved yet, but I mean, everybody keeps looking into it like this. I think eventually it will be. So we definitely do have to have, like right now, I'm not 100% sure it was the mic anymore. You know what I mean? Or the road mic. So I think it's very important to keep having these conversations. But to go back to, a lot of people are saying that it was an exit wound from the front. Now that wouldn't really fit with how you're saying. It does make sense that like it did like bullfrog out. It did kind of react like it was being shot from the front. The exit wound would be interesting because Terrell Farnsworth did not give Candace the full footage from behind. He sent her an edited footage, right?
Well,
So showed it to her.
Yeah. So I was there for that call, and I recommended that she record it. Glad she did. Because now, other people have gotten to see that footage, but it was a FaceTime call. He was at his computer. I watched him open up the file. The menu structure, the file structure looked to me exactly like you would expect to see from a Sony professional camera. We use Sony FX6 cameras to shoot Candace's show. That's part of Sony's cinema line. So I would see that menu structure every day when I would dump the footage off of the cards. So that looked legit to me.
Okay.
And that didn't look like it was edited unless he went through the trouble of editing it, saving the file exactly as the way the camera would number it, and then nesting it within the folders exactly like the camera would, which is a possibility. That's easily doable. I saw him open the footage and bring it into a timeline for us to watch it. He held up the camera to it. Now, it was a horizontal video on his screen. It was a vertical FaceTime call. So there is going to be stuff that you're not able to see.
Right.
The framing of the camera, the footage from that camera that I saw didn't look suspicious to me. A lot of people are like, why isn't it showing the ground? It's like, well, that camera is put in place to capture the crowd reaction, to get, this cool shot of Charlie, the back of Charlie's head, and the crowd just going out, into infinity. And so that's, as a director, that's a shot that I would have chosen. But we could see in that vertical cutout from him holding up his phone to the screen, we could clearly see the back of Charlie's head, the back of Charlie's entire body, and there was no entry wound. In fact, there was no blood visible at all. And that's what really kicked this off, because right after, Charlie died and they're like, oh, it was a 30-06, people believed it, because there was no mention of, wait a second, there's no exit wound.
Right.
So we essentially broke that. We broke that story that there was no exit wound because we didn't see it on that footage. And so if we don't see an exit wound, we most certainly didn't see an entry wound.
Right.
Because there was literally no blood back there. And so any of these theories of a shot coming from behind, I'm not really a believer in, because again, we didn't see that. And then the wound that we see on Charlie's neck is almost perfectly circular, and typically exit wounds, especially from a high powered weapon like that, are going to be messier. They're going to be a lot messier. So, because a lot of people don't really understand the effects that a bullet has on a human body. There's the cavitation, and the bullet is really essentially dragging, not to be graphic, but dragging your innards and your flesh and all of that stuff behind it as it travels through that wound tract. And once the bullet leaves your body, if it exits, all of that snaps back into position. So the majority of the damage from a gunshot wound comes from the snapback, from everything snapping back in the wound tract and the cavitation condensing back down. Right. So that's where the majority of the damage comes from, and we didn't really see any of that in the back footage at all. But like I said, if he went through all of that trouble to make an edit and resave it with the exact name and even update we couldn't clearly see the time and date in it, because again, he was just pointing his phone at a screen. If he went through all of that trouble, that is entirely possible. But I think that a lot of the people in that moment, maybe, if there was an operation that TPUSA had a hand in, which I personally don't believe, they wouldn't have been read in until after the fact. And so they wouldn't really know that this is going to happen, because that gives people a chance to chicken out. That gives people a chance to tip him off or tip off other people and stop the plan. So I don't think Terrell knew what was going on beforehand. Maybe if something was going on, he could have found out afterwards. His reaction to run and jump up on a wall and record a selfie video of himself is really weird.
Very weird. Very weird.
And maybe that's just him wanting, looking up to Erica Kirk and being like, I want to be on camera all the time too. But like,
right.
Maybe that could have been it, but that was certainly weird.
I think also with the Terrell Farnsworth thing, if they had footage of an exit wound, I think that they would love that. That would be part of the case. They'd be like, no, a 30-06, it did exit, So it's probably not edited footage, because that would just help their case more with saying it did exit. So I don't know why they chose to use a 30-06 though. It's like, just say something else. And didn't they find I think it was like a 223 or it was a 223 on a different roof, right?
Yeah, and they say that roof didn't have a line of sight to the building or to where Charlie was at, which, I believe. But there's, what cop is going to be like, oh, I'm bored up here, let me just clear a round out of my rifle and then forget about it.
It's none.
Okay. That would be weird.
Yeah. That's
just as weird as someone's body cam turning off as soon as they got up on the roof. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's just
crazy.
Insane.
Yeah, it's like nothing's right.
Unbelievable. And it's crazy. See, that's where I go to with this idea. People are always like, how can so many people be in on a conspiracy? But it happens all the time. Hundreds of people in government can be in on conspiracies, thousands, I'm sure, in history. So it is like that cop is part of the conspiracy, in my opinion, with saying that his body cam footage shut off. He shut off his body cam footage in my, probably, maybe, allegedly. And so.
Or someone above him remotely disabled it.
Or that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of ways that can be done. They could even stage it if they know what time the shooting is going to happen, because I'm sure someone knew when it was going to happen. They can time it out where, okay, this cop would be one that's most likely to respond. Let's only let the battery on his body cam charge this much, so that way it turns off when he actually needs it most. Right. And, they luck out. It's as soon as he gets on the roof, it turns off. It could have turned off, a little bit before, a little bit after, and still have the same effect. But it turning off as soon as he gets on the roof, huge suspicion thing. And that plays into their hand, because that creates more, data points for us to look at to misdirect us from what actually happened.
Yeah.
And, at this point, I think the exploding mic is being used as an off-ramp to get us to focus on that. Like John Bray, I think he is a legitimate guy. I think he legitimately believes this. He discovered it, and he ran with that theory. And I don't think there's anything nefarious about him. I think he genuinely believes what he's saying. I think there are people that have been introduced into his orbit that are, giving him bad information for him to put out to kind of build a way to discredit him. And, that kind of leads into what I think is going on in the broader picture with this is, I think that TPUSA absolutely has the audio that was recorded from that microphone. And I think that they're waiting for everyone to stake their entire career, their entire reputation on this theory, and then they'll drop the audio. They'll probably be like, look, we have the mic too. I'm not going to believe that's the actual mic.
Right.
I don't know if anyone will believe it.
Right.
But I think the audio would be extremely compelling because AI is good at replicating voices and it's good at replicating a lot of things, but you can still, there's still kind of like that auditory uncanny valley where you can tell that it was generated or there's something off about it. You can't quite put your finger on it. And then you factor in the environmental sounds. You would hear the gunshot. You would hear the sound of him being thrown to the ground. You would hear the security guys all talking over each other, figuring out what to do. You would hear, the rustling as they like bounce Charlie to the car. You'd hear them in the car. You would hear all of that stuff. And that's a lot for AI to get right, to get believably right. And then also the timing, because we have all of these recordings of Charlie going down. Someone is going to sync all of those up with the audio from the microphone.
Perfect.
And it'll sync up perfectly. So it's hard to get all of those things nailed precisely. So I think that'll be extremely compelling. And I think that's their ultimate play is I don't think TPUSA started that theory. I think that this was an organic theory. I think John Bray, organically, brought it to prevalence. But I think it's absolutely being used right now in a way that, these people are, if they were Alinskyeites, they would call him a useful idiot. As like someone who's not involved in the plan, but is being used to further their plans. So that's my soapbox, my tinfoil hat. On the tinfoil hat.
Great perspective. And it's good to be wary of that as, the audience and as truth seekers to just keep our minds open. We can all agree that something's not right here.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it will figure it out all together, but great perspective.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
So
good.
And really that's one of the great things about this community. We can disagree on stuff, but we don't turn it into like, well, I'm never talking to you again, or you're crazy. I'm gonna discount anything else that you say. As like that. That's something that's pretty beautiful because in such a divisive world, which we've seen rise incredibly since Occupy Wall Street, that was the pivot point in my mind. And I can go deeper on that broader conspiracy if you want later. But it's been extremely divisive, especially when it comes to politics. And that has primed us to, as soon as someone slightly disagrees, you cut them out of your life. You don't listen to anything that they say. But this community of researchers, it's so beautiful. We still stick together. We still like, I don't agree with that, but let's look into this thing that we agree on together. Or maybe that could have played into it. And it's incredible. So I think that's another very powerful thing that they want to shut down. And so they are absolutely going to try and interfere with that because there's no way that the proles are allowed to work together. Like no way at all.
Right.
So
let's keep sticking together, keep seeking the truth, and it will be revealed in due time.
Exactly.
Yes.
Let's move on from this topic, though. I wanted to get into a little bit of your background. We saw on Instagram that you actually took some photos or did some directing for Donald Trump. And so we were really interested, like, how did that come to be? And what was that like? What did you learn from that experience? Was he nice? Like, how was it?
Yeah, so there were two times I got to work with the president. The first time was, I want to say, late 2021. I went with Candace to Mar-a-Lago to interview him. It's a fantastic interview. Highly recommend you check out if you can find it. That was during her Daily Wire days, so who knows where that actually is. They own that. That was great. He was very nice. He was very personable. Took the time to take a crew photo with us. So I have a picture with the president. No need to brag, but it was a great time. And then there were last June, I worked a freelance gig, and so let me back up a little bit. Part of the reason why I left Candace's show was after my time with the Daily Wire, I put myself out into the freelance world. I worked on a different podcast for a bit, and then I started getting into sports and entertainment production. as a technical director. So some countries it's known as a vision mixer. You operate these big panels that control all the video sources. So anything that you see on the screen goes through that panel. And so that's kind of my specialty is pushing buttons effectively. And so I got brought on to technical direct the pool feed for the Army 250 parade. It was the Army's 250th birthday celebration. Also happened to be Trump's birthday. And so I got to go out there. I didn't meet him directly at that point in time. I was in the production truck, but it was a great experience to get to work in DC under crazy Secret Service protection and all the intricacies that come with trying to do a production in that type of environment, like with wireless cameras, trying to coordinate frequencies with them. And then they decide, oh, wait, no, we actually want to use that frequency. You have to undo everything, or, oh, you're not allowed to have that cable running here, so we're just going to cut it and not tell you about it. Like all kinds of crazy stuff dealing with the Secret Service, which understandably so. They have, some very high profile people to protect. Yeah. But that was a fantastic experience. On the production side, it could have been a little better, but I think a lot of that just came from having to work in that type of environment where you can't really nail anything down until you're actually in the show. And when you're dealing with, thousands of troops, hundreds to thousands of troops marching in formations at different times, flyovers, all that stuff, it gets a bit complicated. So we weren't entirely set up for success with that, but I'm still proud that I was able to be a part of it. But it's an incredible place. I was just in DC the other day, and it changed so much just in that last year since I'd been there. It was really amazing to see all the fountains were running and clean. The reflecting pool was drained this time, but that was I didn't see a single homeless person. I actually felt safe out on the street. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4", but I still felt safe out on the streets. But yeah, it's crazy how much has changed out there.
Yeah, I mean, with the administration, we were very pro-Trump before he got elected. Same. And right after, it was the coolest movement, the most beautiful thing. We were so excited. Everything was promised, and we really believed it because Trump, back in 2016, 2020, he was a different animal. It was completely different. And then just seeing it all go downhill so quickly. I mean, Ian Carroll posted something on 4th of July. He said that you can have patriotism for your country, but not for your government. And I think that's so important to have this patriotic feeling inside of you still for the greatest nation in the world, which is the United States, I think that's okay. Like you saying that you went and you saw the fountains are running. It was beautiful. DC was better. It's like we should all still want that. It's not like burn everything down, but to keep it going just because our president turned out to be a lying liar, as Barron likes to say.
A bit of a lame duck to be.
Lame duck.
Yes. To put it nicely.
Yeah.
Right. I voted for Trump 6 times, 3 primaries, 3 general elections. I was a big fan. In 2015, I've done a lot of research into psychological persuasion, things like that. Influenced by Robert Cialdini is a fantastic book I recommend people check out. And I saw, I think Cialdini mentioned in that book that there are people who study it, but then there are people that are just naturals at persuasion. And I saw that Trump was a natural in the debate with Megyn Kelly asking him the question. You've called women disgusting, slobs, fat pigs. There's no good answer to that, because you either say yes, but, in which case you're saying yes and you're letting her win, or you say no, but, and you're lying. But he found that line, only Rosie O'Donnell. And everyone laughed, and that took the wind out of her sails, that diffused it, and she moved on. Just being able to find that on the fly was very impressive to me. And so that's what kind of got me behind him. And then, looking more into his platform at that point in time, I was on board with that. Yeah. I think he definitely got stymied at the end of his first term. There were definitely a lot of irregularities in the 2020 election. But I think Butler really changed him. I think coming that close to death changed him. And I think people took advantage of that and, tried to push more of a spiritual thing on him. And I highly believe that someone may have said these words to him. This is just a guess. There's no facts behind this. It's just my thinking. Someone probably told him, God saved you so you could save it. Something like that. And that, maybe that's why he's so on fire for, doing the bidding of what they want him to do with the Iran war, all of that stuff. Because that doesn't really affect America. That seems like a really regional conflict that we've gotten involved in. And we're kind of paying the price for it personally here. For all they harp on Candace for saying she doesn't care about the midterms, it certainly doesn't look like they care about the midterms.
Right.
With gas still being high, inflation, all of these things, it's ridiculous. So I think he was definitely taken advantage of after Butler. A lot of money was given to him, to his campaign. And, he's become quite rich this term, which is sad to see, because that's the antithesis of who he was in 2015, 2016. Right. And it's sad. Now he's just focused on leaving as much of a legacy as possible, putting his name on as many things as possible, and being known as the peacemaker. And people leverage that. Susie Wiles, her history is a little strange. Some of the people that she's connected with is a little strange, and she's his right hand. She's the gatekeeper.
Crazy.
And so I think a lot of this stems from her.
Wild to think that, because that woman is something else.
Yeah,
Wild.
You know what else is, this is kind of off topic, but like a little conspiratorial, right? Because we're apparently super conspiracy theorists here. Everybody surrounding, not everybody, but a lot of people, whenever they get compromised in a certain type of way, it seems like they go to the immediate response of that person has cancer, which is really interesting to me. So they did that with Susie Wiles. They just recently did that with Tulsi Gabbard's husband.
Oh, Tulsi Gabbard's husband,
Bondi, yes. Like all of them, they do this. And I'm like, there must be something there because, and this is totally my opinion, but it does seem like, HIPAA and laws, like you won't really know what's going on with them. You know what I mean? So weird that they do this to people who are so obviously compromised and just got totally compromised in an obvious way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, they could even be. That is an interesting theory. They could even be giving these people cancer. I mean, there's an old conspiracy theory that, Bob Marley was given cancer. He stubbed his toe playing football, or soccer, or World Cup. I'm still saying football, but it's soccer. He stubbed his toe playing soccer and ended up developing cancer and dying from cancer. And so a lot of people think that there was something on that ball or something poked him and seeded that cancer. There's a lot about the human body that we don't know about. And especially now with the mRNA that got fast tracked, literally those had never been used in humans before until they started using them for the. So there's so many side effects from that, or so many incidental things that could happen that we have no idea about. And I know a lot of people in politics got the shot because that was the style at the time. That was the cool thing to do. Maybe some of them got saline injections instead. I would count on that. But I think the majority of people actually got it. And there's broad implications from, releasing these types of things into the human body to just do whatever they want. And cancer is absolutely something that could come from that. But I'm not a doctor, but I've seen, excess deaths have gone up, and there's something behind that as well. But they have, Chuck Schumer said it best, the intelligence community has 7 ways from Sunday of getting at you, and killing family members is something that I'm sure has been done. And, even Thomas Massey's wife dying, that was incredibly suspicious to me.
Right. And nobody talks about that. And that is very suspicious to me as well. I was like, wait, his wife died in a car accident, right?
No, I think she died suddenly from an illness.
Oh.
So, and then we see Lindsey
Graham. Her. Yeah.
Yeah. Lindsey Graham, they, drops dead, and then a few hours later they come out with a preliminary autopsy report, which is weird. I mean, maybe they fast track it for senators or very important people, but they're like, oh, preliminary cause, aortic dissection because of plaque buildup or whatever. It's like, well, members of Congress have the best healthcare in the country. They're not getting these preventative scans that see that buildup.
Right.
That's a little weird to me. And, aortic dissections happen. That's what killed John Ritter out of the blue. I don't know if people remember that. Just randomly dropped dead on the set of his show.
Yeah.
And it happens. The human body's weird like that. But it's a little suspicious the day he gets back from Ukraine. And then they send Laura Loomer over there, too, to be the new PR agent for Zelensky with these highly produced cinematic interviews and videos of her there. Like
it's very
that
strange.
is Ukrainian. Yeah. And then they replace the top of their entire military while saying that everything's going great. That's weird. It reeks of a rebrand to me, but
totally.
I'm not going to go down the Ukraine rabbit hole.
And Larry Loomer, he is totally rebranded. Okay, the way that he's not really on social media going crazy on people anymore. Now, she's on there and trying to be super like official. I feel like, and she has so obviously
more
rebranded.
Put together.
Yes, and
she's like, wait, I want to run for office.
Yeah, that's what I get the feeling.
Which she's tried in the past unsuccessfully. But
yes.
I think you're 1,000% right. She's trying to shake the loony Loomer branding. Calling her Larry, insinuating she's a man. I don't believe that. Now I believe Brigitte Macron was born a man, and we can talk about that. But Loomer, I think I've heard enough stories from people that have had interactions with her, whether or not they entirely wanted to or not. It sounds like she's all woman. So, unfortunate looking as some people may think that she is. I think she's a woman, but
no, it's just
Brigitte
a fun
Macron,
joke.
1,000%.
Fun joke.
I know, because I know it gets on her nerves. It has to. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be called a woman.
Right. I mean,
clearly I'm not though, but you never know these
6'4".
days.
See, she's not clearly a woman. It's not like a 100%. You can be like, maybe she might be a man.
You never know these days. You don't want to assume.
I've heard from people who have independently verified.
Okay. Well, then there we go.
non-public
Leave it
fashion,
there.
yeah.
Then
we'll call her Laura from now on.
I have
Fine.
not. You can call her whatever you want. I just wanted to get that point out there.
Well, that's a good point. We need that out there.
There's plenty of stories going around.
I'll stop with the misinformation, guys. All right, it's a female. It's a female.
And that word misinformation, to get back on my soapbox again, one of the things that I like to say a lot is misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, whatever prefix they put in front of information is BS. There's just information. And one of the things that makes us human, and that is kind of like I guess you could say the divine light in us, is that we have the ability of discernment. We have very strong, that gut feeling, just that kind of like sixth sense of discernment. And when I think the media intentionally uses these terms, misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, as a way to get you to subtly outsource your discernment to them. Because we weren't created to live in the world that we live in. We weren't created to live in this world where there's all these flashing lights everywhere. There's all this information coming at us. Historically, for thousands of years of human existence, we were only aware of our immediate surroundings. We had no idea what was going on outside of there. We could care less because it didn't affect us in our little tribe, our little community. But our brains work at such a higher level than animal brains around the world. And part of the reason why we got to that level, and this is discussed in that influence book, is through these automation shortcuts. Is you breathe without having to think about it. You can move your arm just by moving your arm. You don't have to think which muscles specifically to move. There's a lot of these subtle automations that happen. And to get into a broader conspiracy theory, the whole microaggression campaign that has gone around is another way to get us to break those automations and have to focus on little minute details. So that really stops our higher level thinking, because that's the reason why our brains got so powerful, is because of these lower level operations being automated. It freed up extra capacity for us to think of things, or for us to come up with new things. And so I think right now they're absolutely trying to dumb us down in a very subtle way by chipping away at these things that made us human in the first place and that made us thinking, feeling creatures. They're just chipping away at them piecemeal, just little piece by piece, bit by bit, so you don't really notice it. It's like boiling a frog, slowly at first and then all at once.
Yeah,
and
that's a great
so
point.
that is, I think that's what's happening right now, to get really deep into the conspiracy world.
Yeah. I mean, the big
It runs
picture,
deep.
the big
Yeah.
picture
Yeah.
of everything, that is what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to explain it.
Thanks. I try.
So we'll kind of end on something super cool that we saw on your Instagram. You went to Antarctica? Is that right?
I did.
Tell us about that. I mean, I can only picture it as being just ice and that's it. So I don't know if there's going to be too much to describe scenically, but tell us what it was about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to say summer of 2024, Candace received a message from a guy named Will Duffy, who is a pastor out in Colorado. And he essentially went on a mission on his own to disprove flat Earth because he couldn't believe it was 2024 and there were still people asking questions about the shape of the Earth. And so he went really deep down that rabbit hole, and he found something that both the flat earthers and the globe earthers agreed on, and made that the focus of what he later called the final experiment. And so what both flat and globe earthers agree on is that if the Earth is flat, it is impossible for there to be a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, because in the Gleason map, or the AE projection, that is typically known as the flat Earth map, and for some reason also used as part of the UN's logo, Antarctica is shown on that map as an ice wall around the edge. And so if the Earth is a flat disk with Antarctica around the edge, there can't be a 24-hour sun out there because the sun has other places to be, and the flat Earth thinking was that you can't actually go to Antarctica, and that any time lapses that you see of a 24-hour sun were actually taken in the Arctic up north, where millions of people have seen a 24-hour sun and believe it. And so, and that works with the flat Earth map, because they say that the sun moves between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn throughout to create the seasons on Earth. And so when it's more up north, there's a 24-hour sun in the Arctic. That's fine. But it's impossible for there to be a 24-hour sun on a flat Earth in Antarctica during their summer. So he looked up this company, Antarctic Logistics and Expedition, and put together this trip with 4 flat earthers and 4 globe earthers, and started reaching out to them. And so he reached out to Candace because she had done a stream where she said, I'm paraphrasing here, something to the effect of, after I don't trust science, I don't even know if the Earth is flat or round. She never came out as like a flat or a globe earther, but she had that question. And so someone saw that, brought that to Will's attention, and he invited her and George to go on the trip. And she got that email while we were having a pre-show meeting, and she said, I would love to do this, but, it was during the holidays, was the time of the trip. And, she obviously had family commitments at that time, and I kind of half jokingly was like, I'll go, not expecting them to actually send me. And he wrote back and said, yeah, that's great. We'd love to have you. So yeah, I got to go on that trip. It was the most breathtaking experience of my life, just being in Antarctica. And really the isolation was what was most attractive to me, because we weren't just on the coast with the penguins. So many people take a cruise to Antarctica and they get to go to the coast and, maybe step out and get back on and be like, yeah, I went to Antarctica. We actually went about 400 miles inland.
Wow.
And so there is no life out there at all, except for us. And when the wind wasn't blowing, it was insanely quiet, to the point that the people who worked at the camp have said that they have trouble sleeping sometimes because they can hear the blood rushing in their ears. Like, that's how quiet it is out there. And just, feeling that and knowing that I'm, hundreds of miles away, or not even hundreds of miles away, thousands of miles away from people, just in the middle of this continent of ice, is just profound. And, I spiritually as well, I had, I definitely connected with God in a new way on that trip, and it was beautiful. That really opened my eyes to a lot. Just that feeling of being out there and knowing how far away you are, how isolated you are. But long story short, the sun didn't set at all while we were there, and we weren't exactly at the South Pole. So the sun wasn't doing a perfect circle in the sky. It would dip down slightly and then come right back up. If we had gone all the way to the South Pole, which was an option that they offered, but was very, very expensive, the sun would just be totally perfect circle in the sky. And so a huge credit huge credit to the flat earthers that went on this trip, specifically Jaron Campanella. If you've seen the documentary, I think it's called Behind the Curve or Beyond the Curve, they go out of their way the producers of that film went out of their way to build Jaron's trust, make him think that they were on his team. They were going to make him look good. And they just made him look like the biggest idiot ever in that documentary. And even at the end, they ended it on him looking stupid. That was like their button at the end of it, their big laugh before the credits at his expense. And so Jaron was very understandably so reluctant to go on this trip, or to have anything even filmed on this trip. And, throughout the process leading up to it, they were inviting all these people. Alex Stein was invited at one point, and he wasn't able to make it, and they had a spot left. And I knew someone through a friend, and this guy named Jonathan Morandi, who was a documentary filmmaker. And I remembered he's a hardcore flat earther, like hardcore. We went on his Facebook going back 10 years, and there's all these posts of him arguing with people about how the earth is flat. And I'm like,
Nice.
okay, if we're gonna make something out of this, this is the guy, because he is documented flat earther. And so the flat earth team is actually going to be more comfortable with him, because there is this history that Jonathan has. And really, just at its core, my main pitch to Will was, no matter who is going on this trip or what the trip is, what the outcome is, 9 random people who don't know each other going to Antarctica together is a great story, just
Right.
regardless of anything else that happens. So that should be filmed. So Jonathan came with us, filmed a fantastic documentary, which is actually in its final stages. It's been broken down into episodes, and now we're figuring out release strategy on it.
Awesome.
And I've seen most of it as of now. I've got some homework. I've been a bit busy, but I've got some homework to finish watching them. And it's fantastic. And like I said, huge credit to Jaron for coming on this, but even bigger credit to him. While we were there and the sun didn't set, he admitted it on a live stream. He admitted he was wrong, that the sun does not set in Antarctica. And on its face, that doesn't sound like a big deal. But when you think about Jaron's livelihood, it's him. He was one of the tentpole figures in the flat earth community. His live streams were some of the most popular. He had a huge financial incentive to go down there and lie,
Right.
but he didn't. He told the truth. And that tells me that his heart is genuinely in it, that he actually cares about what is the truth and not what's going to make him the most money. So I have a huge amount of respect for him. And Austin Whitsitt as well, who went on that trip. Jonathan Flat Earther wasn't so prominent in the community. And then I believe the other one is a woman named Lisbeth Acosta, who's kind of big on Clubhouse in the Flat Earth community. Huge respect to all of them for coming, because they're putting their livelihood at risk, because
Right.
they know they could be wrong.
Yeah.
But they actually stood up for what the truth is. And that is a huge thing for me. So,
So
major
cool.
respect to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
Like your
love to go
whole-
again.
That sounds
That's amazing.
Yeah.
When can we expect to see that? Do you have, like dates? Because we really actually want to see that
Yeah.
documentary.
Yeah. Not as of yet. I think most of the episodes are picture locked at this point, which means 99% done. And then after that, it comes down to release. So there was a lot of footage captured, and there's a lot of really compelling stuff. And so we really had to work. First, we tried to whittle it down into just a feature-length documentary, but then you had to give up too much. And so doing it as episodes, I think ultimately there will be 4, maybe 5, most likely 4 episodes. That's the best way to get the story out, and it's more consumable for people that way. And so we're working on distribution. Jonathan's handling a lot of it because he's out in LA and he's very familiar with all of that process. He's worked in the film world a lot, and so I think he's shopping it around with some buyers, and hopefully we can get it out soon. And I have a backup release strategy that I'm not going to say yet. That's another route that we may go, but I think it's very important. It needs to get out there. So hopefully by the end of the year, I think we're in really good shape to make that target.
Yeah, the final experiment.
Yeah, that's
We're
gonna
looking
be
forward
great.
to that. Seriously.
Yeah, me too.
It's funny because we were looking everywhere for it because we thought it was
Literally.
already released.
We're like, what? I guess
where
we have
is
to
it?
ask him where we can get it. But it's not out yet.
That was going to be the
just the
last
trailer.
question.
The trailer is amazing.
It's
We're like,
so good.
Thank you.
whoa,
Yeah,
this looks so good.
Yeah.
I contributed a pun to that, but the rest of that was all Jonathan.
It looks
He's a
fantastic.
very, very talented guy.
Well, Mark, this was a great conversation. We had a lot of fun. I know that you've got to go. You've got to do a live stream soon. We got to let you go on your way, but we'll definitely do this
Thank you.
again. We have so much to talk about. I think not having all of our ideas be exactly the same is so important, and having conversations and still going out there and having great conversations at that is super important.
Yeah. And be willing to change your mind. You know, be willing to change your
Exactly.
mind while looking for the truth.
Yep, because all that matters is
and
the truth.
You make a great point there. Various points of view. Everyone on the left likes to harp on diversity, but no one cares about diversity of thought. And I think that's what's truly important, because instead of trying to find ways that we can make ourselves different from each other, like this intersectionality of like all your different prerequisites of like, oh, the first Hispanic, female, whatever, all these different things.
Yeah.
That's just finding new ways to divide us and new ways to think that we're different. Like, we are all made in the image of God. We all have the same blood running through our veins. We're all, sharing a human experience together. And, at its core, at that core, you should be able to find at least something in common with someone, maybe even a lot in common. So,
Ooh.
there you go.
Beautiful.
There we go. Thank you so much, Mark. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks.
Yes,
You too.
and God bless.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you like the conversation we had with Mark, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Another way you can support is our Buy Me a Coffee, which we just started. You can check that out in the description below.
And make sure to check out our Patreon or Spreaker to get that uncut, uncensored, unredacted full videos.
Till next time, guys.
See you next time.